Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well today. We're going to let everyone kind of trickle in, attendees show up, but I wanted to thank you for stopping by this morning and joining us for Stop Sending Re-engagement Campaigns. Make engagement a daily practice with audience management. Just a little intro for me real quick. I'm Lizzie Hoffman. I'm the marketing manager at Tower Data. And I've got two gentlemen with me here today who are going to talk about audience management and why re-engagement campaigns may need a little rethink. So just a couple of housekeeping items while people start to show up. First things first, this is a recorded session, so you can just sit back, relax, hang out, listen. We're aiming for under a half hour, so we'll get you in and out of here. You can also ask questions in the question panel. We will get to those at the end probably. So throughout this, as you're listening, if you think of anything you want to ask, if you want Dela or Phil to answer, feel free to ask that question. And then there are handouts available. You'll see 4 handouts there, some from Alchemy Worx, some from Tower Data. Feel free to reference those throughout. And then that about covers it for housekeeping. So we're going to let a couple of people trickle in a little bit more, but Phil and Dela, whenever you're ready, I would love for you to introduce yourselves and tell these lovely people a little bit more about you.
Sure. Why don't we give one more minute and then we'll start those intros so that we don't miss out on anybody. I don't know that any of us is talented enough outside of email marketing to entertain you folks for a minute as they come in, but it's at 10:02 we'll start the intro.
Works for me.
Very good. And certainly if you have any burning questions throughout, please put them in. Lizzie's going to try to monitor them. So if there is an appropriate question to interject, we'll certainly take it as they come in. But we appreciate you all taking your time this afternoon or this morning, depending on what it is, where you are. And we're happy to be with you. Okay, shall we start? So I'm Phil Davis. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Tower Data. I've been with Tower Data since 2014 when they acquired Rapleaf from LiveRamp. I was previously the CEO of Rapleaf. I've been doing email marketing for 20 years, which is remarkable. I got into it because I started getting email offers and I thought they were real cool, and they were new, and they seemed to work real well, and that's how I got into the business. So excited to be here. A little bit about Tower Data. Tower Data is also in the industry. They're 20 years old this year. Tower Data is a technology company that provides data services. We try to make it incredibly easy, safe, secure for marketers to get the data they need to supercharge their email program. So we offer email delivery validation. We offer email intelligence to help you understand more about the user behind the email and more about the email behind the user. We also offer identity matching, which we've really seen grow and grow in the past 3 years as it becomes very important for marketers to be able to share data across its various channels. So we're very excited to be here and present some of these services. And I've known Dela for probably 10 years now, and I've been on panels with him, so I'm excited that Dela chose to share some of his wisdom with us. So Dela, why don't you introduce yourself to the 3 people out of 100 that might not know you?
Too kind. I'm Dela Quist. I'm founder of Alchemy Worx and currently CMO of Alchemy Worx, which is what happened post our merger with Sell Up, another agency. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I kind of did that calculation of how many hours I've spent thinking about nothing but email marketing. And you can call this incredibly sad or unbelievably valuable, but I reckon I've spent more than 20,000 hours just thinking about email stuff. So makes me a double genius. More importantly, Alchemy Worx is an agency. we provide pretty much soup to nuts services in terms of getting email out the door. There are two ways we can approach, and we deal with clients of a wide range of sizes, from emerging, so a new e-commerce company starting up with very aggressive growth plans might be a good Alchemy Worx client, right the way up to enterprise. I'd say our sweet spot is pretty much e-commerce stroke retail between about 20 and maybe $200 million in the sort of medium enterprise side, and then enterprises like $1 billion plus. So we have two sweet spots. There are two ways we approach this: bottom up, which is production. We offer, anybody who's been in email knows that the thing that makes you lose the most sleep is worrying you get it wrong, right? So being able to trust somebody to do that is a very big thing. So you can trust us. And then on the other side, top down, which is sort of people, process, technology. Do I have what it takes? Do I have the stack and the people and the process in place to take us to be fit for 21st century email marketing? And those are the two questions, two ways you can approach us, and everything in between. I was only supposed to take 30 seconds. Sorry, Phil.
That's okay. But we're happy to have you. Thank you. And also, I want to thank Lizzie for putting together all the logistics that make these things happen. When I say that, it sounds a little trivial, but it is not. And she did a fantastic job. So why don't we jump into this? A couple weeks ago, Dela and I got on a call. He graciously agreed to join us for our fireside chat, the topic being re-engagement. And I said, this is great, Dela. I can't wait to have you on the call so we can talk about re-engagement. I've done panels with Dela, and we often agree passionately about things, and sometimes we even disagree passionately about things, and that's what makes things exciting. In this case, he looked at me and he looked at me right through the camera here and said, Phil, marketers should never do another re-engagement campaign. And so we began our journey. And so, Dela, let's talk about why marketers should never do another re-engagement campaign. And if they're not doing re-engagement campaigns, what is it that they should be doing?
That's a very good question. And I suppose, let me define what I mean by a re-engagement campaign. A re-engagement campaign implies that you have in place a structure or a strategy that says that if someone hasn't opened an email for a long time, you start mailing them, or you drop the mailing cadence or frequency down from several a week down to maybe one a month or two a month, right? And that's accepted wisdom, everybody, and you have that process in place. So if you run such a program, you will soon hit equilibrium, and equilibrium means that your engaged file stays at the same size, no matter how many new people you acquire, right? So you keep acquiring new people, but your engaged file stays the same size. What actually happens is your unengaged file, or haven't opened for pick a number, 60, 90, 180, 360 days, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then every once in a while you go, oh my God, I've got 5 times more people who I don't send emails to than I do send emails to, so let me send in a re-engagement campaign. So you go, oh, we miss you, or oh, Dela, we haven't heard from you for a long time, or did I do something to upset you, or something like that, and we send it out, and we'll get an open rate, which is pretty typical, 2%, 3% if you're lucky, a click rate of 1% or a fraction of 1%, and send that to 1 million people, and you'll get whatever. For the sake of argument, 3,000 people re-engage. Now that's not embarrassing, but it just means that you had 997,000 people not re-engage. And if you send them a message that says, if you don't answer this, I'm never going to mail you again, you can never mail them again, which is probably the most stupid thing I ever see people do. So the point about it, never do that, is to say that I object at the beginning of the process, which is the idea that you pick a number arbitrarily and then just stop mailing people based on a metric that, more so maybe today, and we're going to be talking about that, Phil, later on with the Apple open rates, where the open rate metric in itself is completely called into doubt. So what do you do? And the answer about it, the answer to that question is that audience management, which is what we call it, says look at your entire list and don't go engaged, unengaged, super engaged, and have these pots and stick with them. What you need to do is actually focus on the movement between them, right? So how many people are moving from engaged to unengaged every week? How many new people are you bringing in? And how many people are you re-engaging every week from your unengaged list? And you start focusing on looking at triggers for that movement, which makes you start focusing. So your campaign suddenly more from everybody who's engaged gets this and everybody who's unengaged gets that, to this interesting place where we go, some of the people in the unengaged are going to become engaged and I need to give them a different program. And some of the people in the engaged file are about to become unengaged and I'm going to give them a different program. But the point is you do this every day or every week or all the time. And if you do that, what you will do is slowly but surely increase your engaged file from where it probably is today, which is a rather sad 20, 30, 40 if you're lucky.
Well, Della solves for his technical challenge here. Let's talk a little bit about maybe Liz, you could help me here, but let's talk a little bit about Apple's iOS update. We're going to kind of skip ahead a little.
Yeah.
So as you know, Apple recently made some announcements about some updates related to email privacy and protection. And so, as a marketer, we're very much challenged with the notion of, what does that mean to us? And
Right.
one of the indications that we're going to be lacking is a signal around open data.
Right.
And, Del and I, we both were talking earlier, and we, in a lot of ways, the open signal is often a vanity stat that marketers use to measure how well that specific campaign went. But as
Completely.
Della mentioned earlier, it's also used as a measurement of engagement. And if someone isn't seeing any opens for some brands, say 6 months, some brands say longer, some ESPs do it automatically. And they'll move people into the unengaged
Right.
file. And they're doing this because the ISPs are measuring your reputation based on a measurement of opens. But if you're no longer getting feedback that's meaningful on open data because of Apple's new email privacy protection, then what is it that you can do, right? You're not getting the measurement of the health of your file. And so I think that's an area where we all sit in terms of concern.
Completely.
One of the things with audience management that Del is talking about is if you start practicing audience management from the get-go, then that stat becomes less important. But for those of you that are challenged with measuring the overall health of your database, you're going to have to find other alternatives because you're not getting that feedback. And so Tower Data, for example, helps our clients do that. We do capture lots of signals in addition to open, but other signals too. We have also the opportunity where clients can validate their entire lists on a periodic basis so that they can then get a better handle on how healthy their overall file is. And certainly from benchmarking the health of your file and measuring your ongoing health against those benchmarks will be an important proxy that can be used in place of getting those signals from the Apple users and signals that the ISP may have that you will not have. And so I think in terms of what can we do about those new regulations, one is we do have some data services that can really help you measure the wealth. And then from a practical perspective, it's going back to that audience management philosophy that Della's talked about, and it's maintaining better personalization, but also thinking about the various segments and how can you do a better job of engaging with your clients, your customers that are less frequent users of your service. And certainly the person who is converting That's the
Mhm.
greatest indication of of the engagement. But certainly there are others, and thinking multi-channel will be important. So
Mhm.
getting signals from website visits to
Mhm.
help you understand how engaged that email is will be very important. So you're certainly
Right.
going to have to maintain those multi-channel data points so that you could connect behavior that's offline, online, digital, via email, maybe even via mobile if we're going to be able to continue to do that. So
Right.
um, I
I
think
have a quick
that's
I have a quick addition to that too. So the question came through just to make it clear. This hasn't happened yet. It's part of the iOS 15 update, so not the iOS 14 update. It's upcoming iOS 15. Just because I saw that come through.
very good clarification. Yeah, so that is going to happen shortly, and one of the things you can prepare for that is if you haven't been using audience segmentation and you do have an unengaged file, it's really what you do today. So you've got this unengaged file, you've got the Apple iOS regulations coming up in the near future. So in the meantime, I would recommend that you do look at your unengaged file. We work with our clients to provide signals so that they could identify which of those unengaged users they should be engaging with. And so we will analyze your unengaged file, provide back feedback on which emails are the best candidates to re-engage with, which of them you can safely re-engage with through a series of either validation or pending other email signals. So you could identify which of those emails are high value emails. Are things that you could do right now to prepare for Apple's changes, and also to allow you to begin to think about audience segmentation in a in a in a more robust way. So hopefully Dela can jump back on. I know he has a few things to say about that.
Yeah, he
But
definitely does. I have a couple of questions, both
perfect.
from the question panel and from myself. So one of the things that came through, just a clarification. So the question came through: does the iOS update keep us from tracking opens and clicks? So this is specifically for tracking opens and clicks for Apple Mail engagements, correct? Not
Yeah,
all
so
Google Mail
it
or
won't
any.
keep you from tracking clicks. Clicks come through to your website. They're gonna come to your landing page, and you'll be able to measure clicks. But what will happen is you will not be able to recognize which emails are specifically opening and which emails are not opening.
Correct.
It appears that all emails will look like they have opened
Mhm.
that go through Apple's email management. So
Mhm.
if your user is using Apple Mail to manage their email, everything will look like an opener.
Yeah.
So
Good.
that opener stack coming through from that user will not be an indication of really whether they even looked at your email.
Right. And specifically for those Apple Mail users. I think it's going to be interesting because open rate is something that, speaking from a marketing standpoint, where I used to at least report numbers for opens, clicks, all that stuff in an agency setting to my clients. So trying to think of ways to ease your clients or your bosses into understanding metrics and things that aren't so reliant on open rate based on Apple Mail, if that's a big part of your audience and they use Apple Mail a lot. I'm wondering if you have any input on sort of speaking to like a leadership team or people who need to look at those metrics without the
Absolutely.
open
And
rate.
Delo, I think we got you back.
Yes.
Yes, I am so
Welcome back.
sorry.
No
This is
worries, Delo. We had
super
I
embarrassing.
jumped to the Apple iOS conversation, but I think
Yeah.
one of the questions is if you're a marketer today
Hmm.
and you have been reporting opens
Yeah.
to senior management,
Mhm.
and what do you say to senior management now that the open rate will be skewed and really meaningless?
Yeah.
And where should they go? From my perspective, I believe opens has always been a vanity stat that
Yeah.
hasn't told you a lot anyways. Um, Perhaps if you're only using email for branding, which is a reasonable tool, it might be slightly useful. But Della, why don't you take that question?
Yeah, so I'm glad you did. And by the way, I could hear you forever while everything froze and I was trying to, so I could hear you. And so I'll do a quick summary on what I kind of missed out on.
Okay.
I was going to tee up this whole conversation about the iOS and opens by saying, remember, audience management is about making more people engaged, minimizing the size of your unengaged segment, right? What's almost everybody's definition of engagement? Opens, okay? And I spoke to you earlier on about how, you know, we look for people who are giving signals that they're about to make the transformation from unengaged to engaged, and have programs for that, and the reverse. If they're about to become unengaged, what we do on that. Well, those signals are not open rates because they wouldn't be unengaged by our definition. So we've always looked at many, many other signals in order to determine who's about to move out of unengaged status into engaged. And the other thing to remember is when I got cut off, I was about to say that there's this assumption that engaged or unengaged is a permanent thing. People love you or they hate you. What the truth is that people move in and out of engagement as they go through the purchase cycle, right? If they need jeans today, then emails might be very engaging. They buy a pair of jeans and they only buy one pair a year or two pairs a year, then they probably won't be engaged with Gap for a while, no matter what Gap do. And that's the really interesting thing about it. So with Apple iOS, we all used open rates, right? We all did. It was cheap, it was easy, we all did it, okay? But some of us used other things. And I gave you this analogy, Phil, when I said it's a bit like an auto sport where everyone has to use the same engine. Well, if everyone's using the engine, the people that win are do things better with things that are not the engine, right? So they're better with tires, they're better with aerodynamics or something like that. And so what I would say about open rates is the people who only used open rates are in big trouble until they learn something different. And the people who use other signals, browse behavior, engagement, purchases, click behavior, loyalty programs, there's so many other signals that we use. And I talk about this a lot. And if we've been using them for a long time in order to assess when someone who hasn't opened is about to open, right? It's the same thing. So folks who were good before the iOS announcement will be better today. And folks who were not so good will be worse until they learn. And that's really the simple answer. For us, it's no big deal. It's, as I say, it's just like, oh, everyone has to have a weaker engine. Fine. Everyone gets a bigger engine. That's fine too. It doesn't really matter. And what's happened is Apple has said, we're going to take about 50 horsepower off the engines. Fine, whatever. We're good everywhere else.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple things you're saying is getting signals about your customer in general, not just dealing with, I need this one signal to understand if they're engaged. There's so many other touch points. So one of the things that's going to be very important is also to make sure that you've connected your customer across their channels. So I love what the click to brick stores have done. The Warby Parkers, the Bonoboses, et cetera. They started digitally first. And then when they opened up stores, when you walk in, you check in. And by checking in, they recognize that walking into a store is engagement. And it makes that person they're emailing even more valuable. They have that email of the person that walked in the store. So you need to find ways to connect your customers across all of your channels, offline, online, email, digital. And by doing so, you will have more signals to help you understand how your relationship is with your customers. So I think that's, to some degree, what should you be thinking about now as it relates to engagement, and what you should be thinking about as it relates to then the new Apple regulations.
Yeah, Phil, can I just add to that? Because you spoke about branding earlier, right? And brand campaigns. And you kind of went, yeah, I guess if you wanted to do a brand campaign, that would be okay because you don't need opens. Here's the thing, and this is something that is really important to me. is that I think this will force us to understand how important email is for branding, okay? So you send an email to someone and they pop into the store. Are you going to continue to say it's a coincidence, right? At the moment, because there's no open, we go, that's a coincidence, right? Oh, that's a coincidence. They didn't open the email. They hate our email program. But when we stop seeing the opens and we actually start looking at the impact reach and frequency have on things like store visits and other engagement metrics, we will begin to understand better how email works. And that's been one of, you know this, I've been bitching about this for the best part of a decade, which is we take the brand engagement that email gives for free. In fact, no, we discount it, we spit on it, we despise it, and we go, this is no value whatsoever. But actually, I would say it's the most powerful part of email for the simple reason that reaching 1,000 people on email is an order of several orders of magnitude less expensive than any other channel, right? So, you know, branding, put a billboard up and, you know, you look at the ROI cost per 1,000, how many people are going to drive past the billboard, how many will see and how many will convert, right? We will be forced to look at email in a way I've been talking about for a decade.
Yeah, and frequency matters. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it matters in
as does
every other
reach,
channel. So of
as
course
does
it
reach.
matters in email. Those
Yes,
of you who are watching the Olympics, you might be seeing, you know, the Geico commercial, those progressive commercials. Probably every commercial break, it's one or the other because frequency matters. They're not spending millions of dollars to run a commercial because it doesn't matter. And in email, it's a much cheaper way to get frequency. So finding the right frequency that that keeps you top of mind but does not annoy is really the sweet spot. And so it does
yes.
matter. Hey Lizzie, do we have any? We're running tight on time. What question? Any other questions you'd want to throw at us?
So I have a couple of them. Going back to re-engagement campaigns, this is just asking for like a clarification of the topic. So if we're understanding correctly, re-engagement campaigns are still okay to some extent. It's just more about segmenting differently and focusing on bringing them to a place of more engagement through different tactics.
Can I ask?
Well,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Della.
I'll hear
Okay,
it.
I'm gonna go first then because I'll let you get the last word.
Okay.
So briefly, it's not whether they're bad or good. It's that if you practice audience management going forward and you think of a continuum of my most engaged to my least engaged, they
Mhm.
all require appropriate messaging, right? And never ever give up on somebody because they just might not need your service right now, but they might need your service later. And so don't give up on them. You know, brands that have longer sales cycle are more used to this than brands that think they have shorter sales cycle. So, you know, somebody who sells a car, they kind of recognize as a 3-year. You know, someone who sells a tennis racket, it's a 1 year. You know, but somebody who might, you know, sell a product that gets consumed has a shorter sales cycle. So the brands that have had longer sales cycle have been managing this for a while. Della, why don't you get another word in on this?
Yeah, the best way of describing it is your engaged file is 30% of your list, right? Your total mailable, okay? 70% of your list is unengaged. And every 6 months you go, oh, let me send an engagement email. That's missing the point entirely. The question I'm asking you is, why is your engaged file only 30%? Why? That's criminal. At the very least, it should be 40, or you should be moving towards 40, and then 50, and then maybe 55. And I would argue you should never stop re-engaging people or sending engagement campaigns until more than 50% of your list is engaged. That's the way I look at it. So you know, and I often flip things around. And one of the things I was going to say is it's so big. That's the difference. Ask yourself, if you were to move 10% of your unengaged file into the engaged file through audience management, how much would it cost you to acquire those people through search or acquisition, right? Just ask yourself that question, and then you understand the value of what we're trying to do. Lizzie, I just wanted to say real quick, I know it's not it's in some of the collateral we put in, but I
Right.
asked you to share it separately. We've built an
Right.
audience management calculator, which will give you a sense. If you put in what your list size is, what your mailable list size is, what your engaged size is, your open rates and your click rates, the calculator will tell you how many more opens you could get in a 12-month period just by practicing audience management. And I would recommend everybody do that. And that will show you the difference between a one-off email every 3 months that says, we miss you, and consistently working to keep your engaged file at over 50% of your mailable list.
Yep. And that'll be available for everyone when you receive the recording for this session. So you'll have that available. So then the only other one, if you have 2 seconds for
Sure.
one more, just a question about inflation generally with open rates. Is this something that you're anticipating seeing with the Apple Mail update? I just wanted to toss that one in because it could be on other people's minds. I don't know if it would be industry specific, if it's B2B, B2C inflation rates. I'm not sure, but.
It's a good question. I think Phil will have a very good answer to this, but my way is really simple. My answer is really simple. Whenever the error is consistent, I ignore it, right? So if we're going to get open rate inflation, it will be consistent and everybody will see it, right? And suddenly we're going to get open rates that are at an astronomical level in Apple or iOS. We'll understand what that means and why that happened, right? And so I ignore consistent errors as much as is humanly possible. I think Phil's got a much more scientific response to me than that, to this than that.
It's not much more scientific. I think it's a simple thing that again, you know, when we're asking that question, it's because today we rely too heavily on open rates and
Okay.
we don't plan on changing. So one of the things that you'll need to do if you're asking that question, and many of us are, is think about how you're going to change your measurements. What are the measurements you're going to focus on? But more importantly, preparing your senior management to accept a change. Because all you're going to end up doing is reporting inflated open rates. And if they come back and say, this is awesome, your open rate just went up 25%, you probably want to correct them and prepare them for that. So yeah, there'll certainly be open rate inflation, but again, it's if you're sitting there wondering about that question today, then you've got to really rethink how you're measuring your campaigns, and it sounds like you're going to have to prepare senior management for a change. It's almost when the senior manager used to come to you and say, we make money every send email. Just send everything to the people we haven't sent to in the last 15 years because we got 15 years of emails. Let's just send it to everybody. And you're like, I would love to, except we'll shut down. So let's hold off on that thought. But it's about preparing and helping someone who doesn't understand email understand some of these subtleties, and they're not trivial.
Phil, you're invoking the hashtag DBS, which is the hashtag do be smart or hashtag don't be stupid. You can take your pick, right? So just because we're advocating mailing your inactive file, please don't go crazy and just take your entire file that you haven't mailed for 5 years and just start mailing them, because that would not be smart. Everything we say is implicitly assumes implicitly that you're following best practice on deliverability, right? And you're following best practice on data. And you're using all the tools available, like Tower Data's tools, to allow you to minimize the impact of what you're doing, especially if you're starting. On an ongoing basis, it becomes less of a problem. But if you're starting from today, then just don't jump in and do something.
Excellent. Well, I think we've had all of our questions, Lizzie. So I think we can leave you with the message of either don't be stupid or do be smart. I'm going to go with do be smart, and have a fantastic rest of your day. But Dela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
When Lizzie moderates, we never thank her.
I'm sorry for
Thank you, Lizzie.
So annoying. Thanks, Lizzie.
All good. No worries. That's what I'm here for. Bye.
All right. Well, have a
Take care.
fantastic day, everybody.